Welcome to another fine edition of Insight on this Reno Media Group radio station. It's Bill hanging out with Deanna this morning, and we are super excited to have Deborah in here from American Arborists as we celebrated Arbor Day this past Friday. Deborah, good morning to you.
Good morning. How are you?
We're doing wonderful. So, Deborah, tell us what's going on the post Arbor Day here.
Well, we just teamed up together today to talk about trees. I have Rob Hollenbeek today with the Nevada Shade Tree Council. I have Alex Hoft from One Truckee River and Joel Falgo from American Arborists here in Reno. And we really just wanted to celebrate Arbor Day and kind of talk about some of the tree planting initiatives that we have going on.
All right. Well, that works for us. Rod, let's start with you. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So tell us a little bit about what you do.
I am a certified arborist. I'm involved in educational outreach about trees and their value and their benefits to the community. I do a lot of tree walks. I did 24 last year. I'm involved in a lot of the different groups that have anything to do with trees. And I have 2 websites that are about northern Nevada trees.
Okay. Let's talk about the importance of trees in Nevada.
Okay. Let me pose you a rhetorical question.
Okay.
Many of your listeners have been to UNR. How would UNR look with no trees?
Pretty bare and industrial, I would think.
Okay. And the thing is that a few years ago, somebody figured out that, just like this building we're in or any other building, a tree is an asset. And so then they decided they would quantify it. And also universities such as UC Davis. And what they did was they said, okay, what are the benefits of trees? How do they benefit us? We know they benefit us. And if we want to call it an asset, we have to quantify that. Well, so anyway, so there's 6. Well, the first benefit is obviously trees cool us during the summer, and so we save energy costs.
We're thankful for that.
Oh, yeah. Once again, let's say that you had no tree in front of your house, so the next thing is that trees actually, without plants, we would not be having this show today because trees turn carbon dioxide into oxygen. And we're in the age of global warming, and so that's a good thing. So that was a benefit, and they were able to quantify that. Also, the next thing is that trees actually remove pollution from the air. So they're cleaning the air. The next thing is that trees provide some erosion control. The roots of the trees, when we have periodic floods, let's say, and so then the dirt is not all heading downstream. The next thing is, and I don't even understand this, it's that trees store carbon in their trunk because a lot of the makeup, the element that's, one of the most popular elements in the trunk is carbon. So they're storing carbon, and they can quantify that. Then the last thing is aesthetic. Trees are beautiful. And my evidence for that is go out today and go down the street, and you'll see all the white flowering pear trees and all the purple leaf plum trees that are pink and all that. But at any time of year, they're aesthetic. Fall colors. Reno is a wonderful place for fall colors. So anyway, so they UC Davis sequestered graduate students, otherwise known as slave labor. You want a degree, you're going to be measuring, and they measured the leaf surface and an oak tree can have 100,000 leaves. So think about that.
Yeah, I can believe it. I got one in my front yard.
Yeah.
And they all end up on the ground there.
Yeah, they do.
But anyway,
but they look beautiful during the summer.
Oh yeah. Well, so they measure that because that, the sun's rays hit that. The chlorophyll in there turns the light energy into carbohydrates and other materials that the trees can use to grow. So the next thing that they did was they would put smoke into a little chamber, and they'd have a leaf in there and see how much smoke the leaf would bring in. And
Wow.
I don't know all the detail. You know, they had their own way of doing this stuff. Well, anyway, and so on and so forth. And they came up with a number for each kind of tree. So if you were able to identify your kind of tree, your oak tree that's in your front yard,
Yeah.
and you knew the land use, and you know the diameter size, a number of inches at about chest level, then they gave a number. They came out. You put all that stuff in the big black box. Comes out with a number of how much the annual benefits are for that tree.
Huh.
Now, in addition, they said that, well, let's look at another thing. Supposing that that tree died, let's say, you didn't water the tree. It died.
Right.
So then you replace it. So then that tree is going to cost about like 50 times as much as that annual benefit. So, and, let's say that your oak tree in your yard, I don't know how big it is, but let's say
It's tall.
Okay, but let's say it's 10 inches in diameter. Okay, you're going to be hard-pressed to replace that with another 10-inch diameter tree. So these things, they come up, you add them all together, and I did a tree inventory for Incline Village, and it turned out that the value of the trees, the replacement value of those trees, is more than any building at Incline Village.
Wow.
So we're talking serious money here. Anyway, so those are the benefits of trees.
This kind of brings a little insight into how much it actually costs to help recover an area when there's a forest fire.
Thank you for bringing that up because that's
Yeah,
exactly
that's
where I was
immediately
going.
where my brain went.
I know, and for example, I talked with the people from Incline Village, and they are very concerned about this
Yeah.
because they are sitting ducks up there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I think back at the Martis fire, that was that just destroyed so much acreage. And, we look at wildfire season not only here in northern Nevada, Northern California, but it seems to get worse every year.
Yeah. Yeah.
But by the way, let's say that you decide to replace those trees. Well, it's going to take a while.
Yeah.
Okay, but there's some groups like the Forest Service replants trees in wildfire devastated areas, and also there's an outfit by the name of Sugar Pine Foundation that plants Jeffrey pines, incense cedars, and sugar pines to replace those that have been burned up in fires.
Okay.
So there are people doing things to help this, but once again, I think that you would touch on it, that prevention of problems
Right.
is the same thing. And one of the problems that they have is that if trees are not properly taken care of, then they die, and now they're an accident waiting to happen.
Mm-hmm.
You talked about earlier the time it takes for that oak tree in the front yard to get back up to that 10-inch diameter. How long does it take for a tree to mature like that?
Okay, now, different kinds of trees take different amounts of time.
Okay.
Some of them grow really fast, like a cottonwood, or actually a giant sequoia grows really fast. Oak tree, not as fast. But let's say your oak tree is 10 inches in diameter. It might take 20 years to 30 years to get
that would
big.
make sense because my house was built 30 years ago. And the trees in my yard are just, because whenever people come over to visit, because I live in Sparks over by Reed High School, and people are like, oh, I love that area of town because it has all the mature trees. But when you have mature trees, you also have problems.
Yeah.
That's true. And there are things you can do, and I think American Arborists is going to touch on this.
Good.
That there are things that you can do to keep your tree healthy, and if there are problems with the tree, to keep it from falling over on your house, for example.
Yeah.
Well, let's bring on Joel right now from American Arborists. Joel, good morning to you. Welcome to the show.
Good morning.
So let's talk about that tree health, if you will,
Okay.
for mature trees.
Well, the trees are basically they're dependent upon on the macro nutrients in the soil that you have available.
Okay.
So there's a couple of options you have. We do soil testing all the time, lets you know exactly how much nitrogen, how much phosphorus, manganese, iron, all those good nutrients that is in the soil around that tree.
Sounds like a scientist.
Yeah, and that'll that'll tell us, kicks out a cool report that'll tell us exactly how much is in the soil and exactly how much that tree wants annually.
Okay.
That allows us to then come in and actually apply that stuff into the soil directly so that we can actually fertilize that tree to the proper amounts, based on what its need is. Each individual tree is different. They require different amounts, different levels of all of those same nutrients, along with proper watering schedules and pruning methods to keep them, alive and healthy. To, like I said, a lot of those costs are it's irreplaceable. It's unreversible.
Right.
So when you have a tree that's 30 years old, especially an oak tree, you're going to want to keep it healthy, because to get another one that size, you're either waiting 30 years or you're spending tens to $20,000s of dollars to replace a tree of that size.
Correct.
Into the yard.
Wow. How often do you recommend people get their trees serviced or checked? It's almost like going to the doctor, right?
Yeah, I would suggest at the very least you'd have them checked yearly, have them worked on once every 3 at the least. Now, each tree is different, so some trees grow faster, which means they'll need pruning yearly. Some trees not so fast; they'll need pruning every 3 years. But a lot of those same groups that Rod was talking about went back through and they looked and they said in an urban environment, in an urban forest, you should have your trees pruned or worked on once every 3 years. Okay. So somewhere between 1 and 3.
Had that done last year.
Yep. So depending on the tree species, you would typically be good for another couple of years, but you would want to at least have them evaluated once a year by somebody who knows what they're doing.
That makes sense, because if you think about a tree going through the course of the 4 seasons, there has to be a lot of damage done, especially in an area like ours where we have such extreme climate changes. We go from, feet of snow to the dead of desert heat.
Yep. Absolutely. And so a lot of that is going to be, like I said, just having somebody out that's going to come and check. You know, you can get a consultation. Whether or not work is required is really dependent upon what our arborist sees when they get there.
Where's the best climate for trees?
Really, it depends on the tree. We've broken down the tree climates based on hardiness zones, and we suggest trees based on that zone.
Because I've spent a fair amount of time in Arizona. And, of course, down in Arizona, I mean, the seasons really don't change. I mean, they fluctuate a little bit by degrees. But you can go down there in December, and the trees look full. They look rich. I mean, is it good for a tree to go through that cycle? Is it more healthy, or does it make a difference?
Again, it's going to depend upon the tree. So the hardiness zone is basically dependent upon the coldest temperatures that you get. So for us, at below freezing is going to be, only specific trees are going to live in that zone because they can't withstand the cold. When it's super hot, we can just add water, to the soil, keep it moist, and we're able to keep that tree alive and healthy.
I would imagine it's just like how we might not have so much luck growing hibiscus flowers out here because we have very little humidity.
Yep.
But we could grow yuccas really well. So it kind of depends on which tree it is.
Yeah, another example of that would be the palm tree and a yucca. Palm trees don't thrive here due to how cold it gets.
Right.
But a yucca is just fine. So it's an example of something that's real similar but can withstand a colder temperature.
Right.
Not only do we have beautiful trees in our area, but of course we got the beautiful Truckee River. And let's talk to Alex right now from One Truckee River. Alex, good morning to you. Welcome to the show.
Good morning, and thank you.
So tell us a little bit about One Truckee River and what you guys are all about.
So One Truckee River is obviously all about the Truckee River. We are a local partnership dedicated to protecting, educating, and really just celebrating the beautiful river that runs through our community. The One really emphasizes bringing the local cities and the county and the states together to really just, think as one when it comes to loving our river. So we developed a management plan for the Truckee River that was adopted in 2016 by Reno, Sparks, and Washoe County.
Okay.
That management plan has over 100 items, like I said, focused on the Truckee River and different aspects of that. And a lot of those aspects have to do with protecting the nature along the Truckee River banks. So all the trees, the stuff we've been talking about, the river is very integral with the trees along its banks. So we are big fans of celebrating and protecting those aspects as well.
It was crazy because Rod, you brought up earlier that erosion control is a big part of a tree's life. Correct.
Correct.
Let's talk about that a little bit and how that affects the river.
Tree roots. We think of a tree root as this tree your oak tree has like 4 big roots. True, but however, it also has roots that go down to almost microscopic size. And there's so many roots in that tree that they hold the soil. So if, let's say that the tree dies, well, eventually the roots are going to deteriorate. Now you have no protection. And I'm using as an example of this, a lot of times that we've seen these we've heard of these wildfires that go through the West, and then we find out the next 6 months later they have a flood and they have mudslides,
Mm-hmm.
and so what that meant was that the amount of erosion control has decreased because the trees are dead, and so that now you have less protection.
So you have to go back in, replant.
Well, it's obviously you're way behind the curve now. It's easy to talk about these things, but I mean, remediating it's going to take a while.
How long does it take to recover after, say, as Deanna brought up earlier, a forest fire? How long does it take to kind of rejuvenate the area, or does it kind of depend on the trees and everything in that area?
Okay, so...
Or is that like a never-ending question?
Well, okay, so what happens is, let's just take a typical wildfire that took out a bunch of aspen trees and pine trees and okay, so in the forest, it's kind of like there's a little bit of underbrush, but there's these big trees that are keeping things going. Okay, so the fire comes in. Sooner or later, plants come in, but it's not going to be trees. You're not going to get the pine trees coming back first thing. You're going to get maybe some grasses or maybe some things that you don't really want coming in, and they get succeeded by other things. Aspen trees are a good thing because they are adapted to regenerate after fires.
Okay.
So maybe the aspens will be and it's along a drainage, a creek or something. So that'll be the first thing comes back, and it may take a couple hundred years to get back to equilibrium.
Okay.
So, I mean, and that's why, preventing these things, or let's say containing them when they happen, is important.
With One Truckee River, Alex, I mean, what is the primary thing that you guys try to educate the public on?
So right now, it really kind of comes down to what individuals can do when it comes to conserving water in our community. Maybe it's, if we're speaking in the vein of trees and people's yards, river-friendly landscaping. What can you do so your front yard isn't, the fertilizer you put in it and some of the chemicals you might be using.
That you're not contributing to the problem.
Exactly. So it's really empowering people to just know, that the Truckee River is about 90% of our drinking water. So let's not, pour a ton of fertilizer on our front lawn and have it leak into the storm drains and then into our river. So things like that, really just providing education to people to realize that they're a lot more connected to the Truckee River than they might think.
What would you say to that person that is thinking, because there's a lot of spring cleanup going on, a lot of people are out there fertilizing their lawns right now. What do you say to that one person that's like, I'll just go ahead and do it. It's not going to make a difference.
I mean, how many times do you hear that, one tiny thing can change, like one tiny grain of sand, is the beginning of a landslide. I may have just made that saying up.
That's all right.
It's that idea that truly every single person in our community is affecting our Truckee River. Our Truckee River is a lot more than the river. It's the entire watershed, which ranges, we're smack in the middle between Lake Tahoe, which is where the Truckee River comes from, to Pyramid Lake. We're in this huge watershed. There's tons of tributaries. So even though you're 10 miles away from the Truckee River, there's a tributary flowing through your backyard that goes into the Truckee River. So when you wash your car in your driveway, those suds, that dirt that you're getting off, that's going into the storm drain and going directly to the Truckee River.
So, I mean, of course, it's always best to call an expert when you need a service completed and you don't know the best way to get it done yourself. Because there are, like you said, it's almost like a domino effect. If you do something improperly on your ground, it's going to affect everything or the environment around you. But to help listeners get prepared for the season change, they can contact American Arborists if they needed mulching or tree removal or replacement.
Yes, ma'am. Kind of touch back on the storm drains and things too. A lot of times, with aphids being a really huge issue here.
We have them
trees.
all over our yard.
So we start thinking, pesticides,
Yeah.
right? How can I get rid of these guys? Which is, that is something that we offer, but we like to do drenches. We try to avoid overspray, so that again we don't leach due to that into storm drains.
Describe that a little bit more.
The drenching?
Yes.
So based on the product you would use for the problem that you have, drenching would be a systemic that you would combine with water, organic or chemical.
Okay.
And essentially based off of that DBH, that the diameter of that tree at your chest height, and a certain amount of the concentrate would go into 1 gallon of water, and you would come out about 2 foot from the tree. And
Okay.
you would evenly drench the root system, and that would avoid.
How would you drench? Would you do it through a hose, or would you do it with
watering bucket?
Yeah. Just a watering bucket?
Yep. Water, the
Okay.
chemical in a bucket, and you just evenly distribute that 1 gallon of water with the chemical in it, organic or not, and you would put that around the tree.
I'm doing this because I got to do this weekend.
Go ahead. Yeah, so it goes about 2 foot away from the trunk of the tree. You're going to evenly distribute that 1 gallon of water all the way around the trunk, and that is going to essentially kickstart the immune system of the tree and give it what it needs to help fight back, whether it be against aphids, a boring beetle, even funguses, bacteria, the things of that nature that will actually harm the tree. We can avoid overspray onto the neighbors, into the roads, and again that drenching, being such a contained spot, we can try to help to avoid leaching by just throwing nitrogen all over the front lawn.
I got to be honest with you. I grew up in the Midwest, and I thought we had bugs back there with trees, because I lived in the city, and then we, spent a lot of time in the forest and the woods in Wisconsin and the Midwest. But I've never experienced tree beetles like I have in this state.
That would be the continuous flux of natural water. When you come into a drought and we're not watering our trees properly or enough because of the simple fact we're in a drought, right? We're trying to conserve water.
Right.
We need the water for ourselves, and the trees, our bushes, our plants all become secondary, along with regulations not allowing you to water because of that drought. Those trees, after a couple of years of that, they start to burn up all that stored carbon, that stored carbohydrates, all their energy that they use to continue to thrive. And so they start using that stuff up. You start to see decline as the tree essentially runs out of steam trying to get water and nutrients out of the ground up to its leaf to photosynthesize. And once the tree's in stress, it's releasing pheromones into the air that are attracting bug,
Okay.
or are more susceptible to airborne bacteria. You start to look at maybe root rot, so now your tree becomes unstable. All brought due to a lack of natural rainfall and blistering heat.
It's mentioned when you mention the trees falling over, and Deanna, the part of town that you live in, I think this is pretty common.
Yeah.
Where the grounds get really saturated, say after a big storm.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden,
And then our street's a mess.
yeah, and the big tree all of a sudden just flips over. We've also had it here on Matley Lane.
Yeah.
Where all of a sudden these big mature trees just fall over, and you're like, how can a tree like that fall over?
Could be a number of things. Without actually looking at the tree itself,
Right.
to see what brought that particular tree over, you get kind of a range of deals. You can have that stress level causing a weakness in the root systems. The soil itself, because it's oversaturated, and that tree's now absorbed a bunch of water. Now our wood weighs more, is going to create almost like a crowbar effect on the soil, where the top of that tree is being pulled on by wind.
Okay.
Is now pulling at the base, and what you have there is called soil failure. Basically, that drenched soil, which is mostly clay out here, turns to mud, fails to hold the tree. A lot of that can be avoided with proper pruning techniques if we think that's an issue. If you have valuable targets, houses, people, property, to allow wind to flow through the canopy of a tree, to take weight off of the side of a tree properly, so we're not just hacking it away. We still want it to look good and be healthy, to reduce a risk of that big mature tree failing.
So if you're a homeowner or a business owner and you're not sure how to maintain your trees, or if your trees even need maintenance at this point, they can contact you guys at American Arborist, and you're running a promotion right now. Is that right?
Correct. Actually, in an effort to promote our canopy density, we are giving away a free tree for each tree we take down. So basically, if we remove the tree, you call us, the tree's dead, it's a hazard.
Give a tree, get a tree.
Yep. We'll remove that tree, we'll grind the stump, and we'll put a new tree, a 5-gallon tree, in its place at no additional cost.
Of course, we love American Arborists, but I mean, as a member of the Shade Tree Council, there are other arborists in town.
Of course.
And I suggest that if somebody has a question about their tree, is my tree going to be okay? Does it need care? There's an outfit called the Arbor Day Foundation. It's you can look it up, isa-arbor.org, and they have a list of you can find a list of all of the certified arborists in the state of Nevada.
Okay.
And it gives you the names and addresses. And American Arborist is on there. Also, you can look in the phone book and their ads, and let's say you say, I might do that. You want a certified arborist.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so now let me tell you about the certified arborist. I got a little story.
Okay.
And it's about this near McCarran and Kitsky. There were some beautiful sycamore trees that were about 50 feet tall. They were probably the age of your tree at your house.
Okay.
Now. And anyway, so then I'm admiring as I'm going by every time. But then I come and they've been hat racked at about 20 feet tall.
Okay.
Okay. That was not a certified arborist doing that, because what that tree is going to do, that tree is going to react to that. And when American Arborist or another certified arborist company does it, they're going to make sure this doesn't happen. But what's going to happen is that right at the point where they cut it, little branches are going to come up this year. And they have not come up yet this year, but they're going to. And they are weak. They're weakly attached. It's not healthy. Looks awful.
Almost kind of looks like a spider web, because I've seen that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay. So let's say you have an arborist company. They know how to make the tree to, let's say, decrease the amount of, Joel was talking about the amount of branches. They can kind of thin out the tree without it making it look awful.
Okay. So you want to make sure, where is the best place to make sure that when you hire somebody to come in and prune your trees or do work at your home or business, that you truly have a certified arborist? Is there a place to go to actually check somebody's credentials?
Well, like I said, you could search for certified arborist Reno, and it'll lead you to the place.
All right, we're running out of time here. So, Joel, I want to get some final thoughts from you.
We have a website, prunewithcare.com.
Okay.
That is our website. So you can check us out there. You can give us a call, 775-250-1605.
Loving doing it on the fly. Let's talk to Alex real quickly here from One Truckee River. If people want to get more information about One Truckee River and find out what they could do to help their Truckee River, what can people do?
So number one, I would say visit our website, which is easy, just one spelled out, onetruckeeriver.org. But also bringing that back to trees. So May 2019, starting this Wednesday, kicks off One Truckee River Month 2019. And we're going to have 31 days of Truckee River celebration, and there are 2 specific tree walks that we wanted to encourage people to come to. So Rod here will be conducting the first tree walk on Saturday, May 11th at 11 a.m. at Idlewild. That'll go for about an hour and a half. He can, talk to you about trees, answer questions you might have. And then the second tree walk, also along the river, will be Thursday, May 30th at 5:30. You'll meet in downtown Reno at Barbara Bennett Park. And Joel from American Arborists will give a quick spiel on what an arborist is and tree care tips, kind of like what you heard here today at the beginning of the walk. So those are two opportunities to bring in trees and the river.
And Nevada Shade Tree Council, both 501c3 nonprofits. So if you're interested in supporting,
correct,
that's how you get your fundraising.
All right, as we wrap up our show today, let's bring Deborah back on. Deborah, you have a couple of thank yous here today.
Thanks, Bill. Yeah, I just wanted to thank Rod and the Nevada Tree Shade Council, One Truckee River, for coming today and joining Joel with American Arborists. I think one thing we didn't touch on today was defensible space. And we can go out and give complimentary estimates on defensible space in your yard, help you trim those trees so that you are safe this fire season. And American Arborists can be reached at 775-352-4241, and we're at prunewithcare.com.
All right, very cool. When you talk about the defensible space, prunewithcare.com, you can also get information there too about what are the proper distances for defensible space?
Yes. There's Zone 1 and Zone 2. I think that livingwithfire.com is a great website here in Reno to find out more about those zones. And I think it's 10 feet high dead branches on your trees from the ground.
All right,
yes,
we just got the official nod from Joel on that one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Very cool. Hey, well, thank you so much. Hopefully everybody had a great Arbor Day. And love your trees 365, just putting it out there. That's Insight on this Reno Media Group radio station. We'll be back again next week. Have a great Sunday, everybody.